In the pantheon of action films, there are those that move the genre forward over every other action film of its time. Pinnacles of what the genre can be. You've got your Commandos, your Die Hards, your Lethal Weapons, all films that push the boundaries and create rules that subsequent action films will follow. But it is rare to see a leading man take not one, but two distinct franchises and clear the brush for all others to follow. And that's why I'm here to talk about that Canadian legend, Keanu Reeves. I've never hid my adoration for Keanu Reeves and his work. I've already done a whole episode on Speed, and I plan to probably do more Keanu films. Point Break, anyone? But in this video essay series, I would like to deep dive and see which film series is the most Keanu of them all. The Matrix franchise or the John Wick franchise. And so today we have round one, The Matrix versus John Wick. And before we go any further, I'd like to say thank you to all my returning viewers. Hi, how you doing? Doing good? That's great. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all those fun things that help the algorithm. Help boost my channel. I'd appreciate it. It's been a while since I've done one of these deep dives into a film series, or film series, plural. There's two of them in this one. And as both of the film series are having new films come out in the next couple months, I'm going to be seeing how each of them chronologically stack up against each other movie by movie. I'm going to be breaking these down into 5 distinct categories, different categories than the James Bond one, because there is no opening sequence, really. There's no theme sequence montage. So my categories in this one are going to be plot, side characters, villains, shut up, action set pieces, and the most scientific category of all, the coolness factor. Let's start with the first round. Oh shit, oh. Fuck. This is the worst pour I've ever done. My grandfather would be ashamed. The Matrix is a 1999 cyberpunk action film written and directed by Lana and Lily Wachowski. They started work in Hollywood as writers, their earliest credit being the 1994 film Assassins. However, they tried and failed to get their names removed from the project, as the director Richard Donner had a complete rewrite of their original script. So then they decided to move into directing, their directorial debut being the 1996 film Bound, a low-budget neo-noir thriller starring Gina Gershon as a lesbian ex-con named Corky and Jennifer Tilly as Violet, who start a clandestine affair together and decide to work together to try to steal $2 million off of Violet's mafioso boyfriend, Caesar, played by Joey Pants. It's on the list of movies that I cannot believe I haven't seen yet, but I am very excited to track it down. It didn't make much money at the time, but there was a lot of critical buzz going with these hotshot young directors. And this buzz allowed them to step into the big times and get their $63 million budget R-rated action masterpiece off the ground with The Matrix. The Matrix is a classic hero's journey narrative. We meet Thomas Anderson, played by Keanu Reeves, as he is a mindless office drone who moonlights as a hacker. Let me just say that I love the fact that his home is the quintessential 90s hacker pad. He gets contacted by the enigmatic Morpheus, who gives him a choice of pills, and after he takes the red pill, I will only dignify that movement with this one comment, making the iconography of men's rights activist groups be the inciting incident for a film that was directed by 2 trans women whose primary theme is identity. Someone missed the point. He touches a big ol' mirror that seems to crawl all over his hands, and he wakes up in a vat of jelly holier than Jesus of Nazareth. And let's be clear, if you haven't woken up in a vat of jelly after taking a pill, what do you do on your Wednesdays? And when Neo comes to, he gets told that everything he knows before is a lie. The year is not 1999, it is 2199. Machines have taken over the world and are harvesting humans for batteries. To be batteries, not to make batteries, although humans could probably make some good batteries for them too. We're an ingenuitive species. And also, he's the cyberpunk messiah. And throughout the movie, we find out that people who are unplugged from the Matrix, which are awoken from those jelly pods and brought to a ship and trained and whatever, they go to the real world from the Matrix through a payphone. And if you don't know what a payphone is, it was public phones that were out there, anyone could use. You just put a quarter in and you could call somebody. And if you don't know what a quarter is, that's 25 pennies. If you don't know what a penny is, that's... So it's this classic hero's journey narrative with allegory of the cave, philosophy 1 metaphors sprinkled throughout. The real world is this cyberpunk apocalypse, and the Matrix is meant to evoke any city circa 1999. And unlike Prince, nobody's partying. Since the first act ends with this abrupt shock that throws everything that Neo and the audience is aware of out the window, the beginning of the second act is essentially world building and showing the stakes for what they're about to encounter, as well as explaining the rules of the Matrix and the fact that rules are meant to be broken. And for the third act, Neo has to save Morpheus with
guns. Lots of guns.
And fully accept his role as the one. It's honestly a pretty bare bones plot, but there's enough contrivances and turns in there that makes it engaging throughout, as well as being filled with top-notch world building and being a movie that actually has something on its mind. Seriously, at what other point in cinema history would a major studio greenlight a big budget R-rated blockbuster that doubled as a philosophy thesis? 5 out of 5. For side characters, and by side characters I specifically mean allies, we have Morpheus played by Lawrence Fishburne, who is the captain of the hovercraft Nebuchadnezzar that they are all in. He takes the Gandalf role of the hero's journey, but it's a bald Gandalf with no beard, black leather trench coat, and the coolest sunglasses ever worn by anyone ever. Fishburne's commanding performance enhances Morpheus's zealotry, as he is this fanatic who has spent his entire life following the Oracle, who said that he would be the one to find the one. The film has a bunch of spiritual allegories in there, from Eastern philosophy, Eastern religions, to Christianity and Judaism. Hell, the ship's name is the fucking Nebuchadnezzar. But I don't have all of that knowledge to really relay it to you in a succinct way. But as I grew up in Catholic school, this is how I see him. A gun-toting John the Baptist to Neo's Jesus. Trinity, played by Carrie-Anne Moss, is Morpheus's second in command. And she plays her character with her emotions very much close to her chest. She's very stoic and keeps Neo at an arm's length as she decides for herself whether he is the one or not. Zero humor at all, and it's
How much like it? Was it the same cat?
very intense. However, if there is one flaw that I can say about The Matrix as a film, is the relationship between Neo and Trinity seems very rushed. As the end of the movie, where she professes her love for him, kind of comes out of nowhere. It's hinted at, sure, with subtle glances and whatnot, but these two characters really haven't had a major dialogue between each other that wasn't Trinity arguing and barking orders at him. But that's part of the bigger issue where the film seems a bit asexual, which kind of makes sense because there's not much time for romance when you're running from a bunch of giant spider-like squid machines that shoot lasers at you. Then there's the Oracle, played by the late Gloria Foster, who speaks exclusively in riddles and innuendos rather than giving us a straight answer. And even when she does give us a straight answer, it's a fucking lie! But the first time I saw this movie, and multiple subsequent viewings of this movie throughout my life, she absolutely blew my mind on a comment about breaking a vase as a metaphor for free will versus fate. Then you've got Tank, played by Marcus Chong, who's the pilot of the ship, I guess. He's the one who answers the phone and says operator, who is one of two characters in the entire film that seems like they are real people from the 90s. And the rest of the crew is rounded out by APOC, played by Julian Arhanga, Switch, played by Belinda McCroy, Mouse, played by Matt Duran, and Dozer, played by Anthony Ray Parker. The one thing to talk about with these four is it's not even about all four, it's about one, and it's not even on screen. Switch was originally supposed to be portrayed by two different actors, a male actor in the real world and a female actor in The Matrix. But the studio cut that right out. There are many more qualified people on the internet to talk about the trans metaphor in The Matrix because it's there, it's a thing. The whole climactic fight scene is somebody who refuses to call someone else the name they prefer to identify as. I'll have links in the description for everyone if you want to check that out, because there's kind of enough white guys on the internet talking about how rad The Matrix is without exploring some of the key themes of The Matrix like this. Shut up and get me to the next section. 4 out of 5. Hugo Weaving. What is there to say other than Hugo Weaving? He is the greatest. He plays Agent Smith, and it is absolutely his performance, his eyebrows, his scowl, his way of smirking out Mr. Anderson that is the reason why he was brought back for the sequels. What's fascinating about Agent Smith is while he is in charge of and seemingly working with the two other agents, he is also kind of working for his own means. His monologues to a drugged out Morpheus are just fantastic. Whether it's about how humanity cannot accept a perfect reality, they crave hardship and struggle, comparing humanity to a virus, or dripping in utter disgust as to his current situation and why he needs to get out of the Matrix because he absolutely loathes it. And the way the agents work are fantastic. They are sentient programs who can hop from body to body and just take over any person who is still plugged into the Matrix. Any person can be an agent. What makes the film even better than just having the villainous agents be the antagonists is the addition of the character Cypher. He is a crew member of the Nebuchadnezzar, played by Joey Pants. He is disillusioned to the war with the machines and everything in the real world, and would rather be reinserted into the Matrix. So he makes a deal with Agent Smith to hand over Morpheus to them, and they will bring him back into the Matrix and make him be somebody important.
Like an actor.
And Cypher delivers one of the greatest villain monologues of all time before being dispatched. And he is a key part of one of my favorite movie deaths ever put to screen.
Not like this. Not like this.
But this character also serves a key purpose in the structure of the film, bringing the audience into the world. In crazy sci-fi stories, it can be hard to get the audience to fully buy into the story because there's so much esoteric, weird, gibberish world building you need to do before getting into the story. However, this is helped when there is a character who is a sort of avatar for the times. Someone who you could seemingly grab a beer with and shoot the shit. Think of Star Wars and all of its weirdness, right? What makes the audience feel like they can assimilate into the Star Wars universe is not the warrior monk Obi-Wan Kenobi, it is not the prim and proper C-3PO, and is not the whiny little twerp Luke Skywalker who wants to go to Tashi Station and pick up some power converters. No, it is Han Solo, the guy who doesn't believe in any of that crap, who was copy and pasted from the 70s. And for all his villainy, Cypher...
All I see is blonde, brunette, redhead. Why, oh why didn't I take the blue pill?
Totally fits that archetype. 5 out of 5. So, for the action set pieces, the Wachowskis were heavily influenced by anime and martial arts films, implementing techniques that were used for decades in Hong Kong cinema to an American blockbuster setting. And what they did is just marvelous. I love it. The use of wire fu allowed for them to look like their actors were weightless as they performed these superhuman acts of violence. And it's great. And they kind of created bullet time. And no, bullet time is not just shorthand for the Matrix special effects. Bullet time is a very specific thing that happens in 3 distinct instances in the film. It is a very specific technique where they put a various amount of cameras in a semicircle around an object in motion. And they cut the footage together to make it seem like the camera is moving at real-time speed while the subject of the image is moving in slow motion. That sounds complicated, I know, and I'm not very technical with the whole camera terms, but this is what it looks like. In most situations these days, that shot would be CG, but the Wachowskis figured out how to do that in camera. So great. Also, I haven't talked about how Keanu Reeves had back surgery before this. He had a herniated disc that he had to get fixed. So he was in a brace during pre-production while they were training. The fact that only months after having back surgery, he's able to do this means that Keanu Reeves is just Neo in real life. It is one thing to break ground in action cinema in a very technical sense, but it is all for naught unless the action scenes serve the story. And in this film, every action scene serves to enhance the arc of the characters. The first scene with Trinity fighting the agents and the cops, that is the hook. It promises the audience what the film will be like. This is what type of movie you're coming to watch. Then we get the dojo fight scene between Neo and Morpheus. It serves to show us Neo's training. It also hints to us that Neo has something special, more special than everyone else in the film, but it also highlights Neo's reluctance to accept everything that he's being told. Then there's the Morpheus versus Agent Smith fight. It's more of an interlude. It's very quick. This establishes the danger of the agents. Yes, we've been told how dangerous they are, but in this scene, we get to see what they can do. We haven't seen them in action until this moment. And then there's the shootout in the lobby of the building. That scene is just awesome. Then finally, there is the fantastic subway fight scene. This is Neo's becoming, fully accepting himself as the one, beginning to believe, as Morpheus would say. He has a choice: to run and possibly live, or fight and, as he's been told by everyone else, die. He chooses to stand his ground, and it cements him on the path to becoming the one. 5 out of 5. The costumes, the kung fu, the sunglasses, the gunfights, the flip phones, the scene transitions. Everything in this movie is just so goddamn cool. The sound of the gunshots. Gunshots are not uncommon in films. Like, you can think of a bunch of movies that have gunshots and it's all the same. But in this one, they have a slow motion gunshot, which, once heard, is equivalent to the lightsaber of Star Wars. You can hear this sound in the other room and know somebody is watching The Matrix. To get an audio track to be so iconic is very powerful and rare in movies. Another thing that's cool is the end of the movie where Neo's on the phone. You hear the bass line of Wake Up by Rage Against the Machine, and he takes flight as the credits start and the music explodes, and no other movie could possibly do that. The band Rage Against the Machine, the song Wake Up, in a movie about waking up as they rage against machines. In any other context, that would be too on the nose, but it works somehow. The fact that they can download information into your brain is just pretty perfect. 5 out of 5. That leaves The Matrix with a grand total of 24 out of 25. Now we're on to John Wick. John Wick was released in 2014 and was written by Derek Kolstad. At first glance, this film looks like a run-of-the-mill father knows best type action film. That was very common in the late aughts and early 2010s. Think of Taken and all of the offshoots of Taken, especially those that went directly to video on demand or to Walmart shelves DVDs. You know, you got all the aging stars doing their action movies that were just direct to DVD, like Nicolas Cage, John Travolta, or Bruce Willis. And this film kind of looked like that one for Keanu, but it was coming out in theaters. Heck, Kolstad already had 2 of those movies already released before John Wick came out, with 2012's One in the Chamber, starring Cuba Gooding Jr. and Dolph Lundgren, and 2013's The Package, starring Stone Cold Steve Austin and Dolph Lundgren. However, when the script came across Keanu's desk, he absolutely fell in love with the script and worked with Kolstad to develop the story. He then passed the script to his stunt double, starting in The Matrix and going forward, Chad Stahelski, and another member of the stunt team from The Matrix, David Leitch, both of whom had been working together as second unit directors and stunt coordinators in their own right for about 5 years at this point, and they came on to direct. Stahelski being solely credited and Leitch being just relegated to producer based on some bullshit DGA rules. So the plot of John Wick is dipshit Russian Theon Greyjoy kills retired assassin John Wick's puppy, who his dead wife gave to him as a parting gift. A service that which probably is super irresponsible and shouldn't be allowed to exist, by the way. And he decides to take it upon himself to single-handedly dismantle the entire underground Russian mob in New York. That's the movie. That's it. People say it's a bit much, but they killed his dog. I get it. I don't want to think about it. Why would you bring that up? No. I mean, like, state of Wyoming, maybe. What I meant to say was the amount of people that I would kill to get to the one who killed you would be equivalent to the entire state of Wyoming, which, as of 2021, is expected to have a population of 590,013 inhabitants. And, for a state fact here, Wyoming was the first state in the Union to allow women to have the vote. Don't say I don't teach you anything on this channel. You learn something. Right. John Wick. There is some great setup, showing John bond with the puppy in a muscle car, showing him feed the puppy cereal because he doesn't have kibble. Why wouldn't the service give him dog food if they're giving him a puppy? Just dropping a puppy off at the door of a widower is not necessarily a great thing to do, but, give him food, make sure he has his shots. There's so much that goes into taking care of a dog that, this movie just kind of blows past that, And there's a whole subplot of Willem Dafoe being an old friend of John Wick and an associate/sniper of his past life, but the movie really isn't interested in human emotions and interpersonal connections. It's mostly just a live-action first-person shooter video game. And I say that with love in my heart. Movie goes about, little cutscene, learning about stuff. Then it goes to, level starts, goon comes out, John Wick shoots them. I love it. But it lacks substance. What it lacks in plot, it makes up for in world building. How there's this secret assassin hotel in the Flatiron Building in New York, and it's run by Ian McShane, and they seem to only go off the gold standard. It's a nice touch, but it's essentially wallpaper to show John Wick killing Russians. And as much as I love this movie, and I do love it, the groundbreaking moment in action cinema that it was, the film ends with a boring fight scene where 2 middle-aged dudes punch each other to death. Kind of a letdown. 4 out of 5. This film has a cornucopia of side characters that are portrayed by some of the best character actors in the business today. You've got Ian McShane as Winston, the manager and proprietor of the Continental, a secret hotel for assassins in New York. And he is pitch perfect as this high-class caretaker to the elite assassin of the modern day. It's not just him. There's Sharon, portrayed by Lance Reddick, as the concierge of the Continental. Anything with Lance Reddick is a good movie, in my opinion. That's not just opinion, that's just fact. David Patrick Kelly from The Warriors as Charlie, the cleaner. Willem Dafoe as Marcus, a comrade of John's past life. Clark Peters from The Wire plays Harry, a hitman who's just staying at the Continental for a little bit of R&R. John Leguizamo as Aurelio, the owner of a high-end chop shop with ties to the Russian mob and John Wick. Hell, even former pro wrestler Kevin Nash plays a random bouncer at the Russian nightclub. And he has just this fun little interaction with John that just shows how big and deep this world is, and how deep the character of John Wick is in it while he has been away. The film is just filled to the brim with character actors, aesthetics, and world building. 5 out of 5. Alfie Allen plays Yosef Tarasov, and he's just as wimpy and spineless as Theon Greyjoy is in the second season of Game of Thrones. He can play these types of characters in his sleep. Somebody who thinks he's hot shit because he landed the genetic lottery of being the princeling of this organization, but who, once he gets in trouble, crawls back to daddy and asks for help. And he screws up quite a bit. Much like Theon, Yosef's transgressions leads to the death of everyone who was underneath him and essentially the dismantlement of his father's business. And his father Viggo, played by the late Michael Nyqvist, is just so great. He's not a villain, he's not evil, he does bad things, but he wants to keep his son safe. He's got an idiot son. He knows he has an idiot son, but he doesn't want his idiot son to die. I get it. It's just how much of your organization you want to be destroyed before you end up giving up your dumbass son. But, Viggo doesn't just take it willingly. He does order a hit on John, which gives us a tertiary villain of Miss Perkins, played by Adrienne Palicki. And she's kind of a shithead. She decides to break the rules and to try to kill John inside the Continental, which leads to her getting the consequences of such a transaction. The most memorable thing that any of the villains do in this film is Viggo's monologue about how dangerous John Wick is. The villains are not the point. They're very serviceable and above average, but 4 out of 5. This film is a stunt performer's action movie. Chad Stahelski and David Leitch are pretty great at what they do. Having been in the business since the 90s and working every level of what a person focusing on action cinema would do. Stunt performer, stunt coordinator, second unit director, all the way up. And while The Matrix is full of impossible moves enhanced by wires and on-camera and CGI effects, the action of John Wick is brutal, believable, and somewhat more tethered to Earth. I'm not going to say anybody actually does these sorts of things, but you could argue that somebody could do these things. They incorporate gun fu into this film, which is another thing that was brought in by Hong Kong cinema, most notably with the films of John Woo, such as Hard Boiled, that use close-quarter combat with guns that mix guns with martial arts. But instead of doing weird spin kicks kung fu like a movie that was influenced by The Matrix like Equilibrium, they bring it down to reality with mixing guns into grappling, wrestling, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and realistic firearms training that Keanu went through. And every fight in the film leaves a mark on John Wick, and he goes through a significant amount of punishment in order to gain his revenge. And the realism that this brings into the film makes every bone-crunching punch feel that much more impactful. While the last fight, I've already said, is relatively lackluster, the impact of the first fight, which comes about a half hour into the movie, where Viggo's men raid John's home and John kills all of them at night, which sets up how all of the action will be filmed. Wide shots, not as much cutting, a lot of intricate choreography. It fully sets the audience into what the movie is and why it's fantastic. 5 out of 5. Nope. Bonus point for the beard grab. 6 out of 5. Okay, so this is the first time that I'm going to be actively taking points off of a movie because of the coolness factor. As cool as this movie is, and it's cool, the coolness of the film is drained every time that damn Marilyn Manson song plays in the background. I think the song is called Killing Strangers or some shit. I don't know. I didn't look it up because I don't give a fuck about it. It's played multiple times throughout the movie. It's not cool. It sucks. And I hate it. The Matrix has Rage Against the Machine. That rocks. But I can't take too much off of the movie because there's so much working in this movie's favor. I mean, Lance Reddick's presence alone adds it 2 points. The mini-boss of Daniel Bernhardt's character, who's bodyguard to Yosef, the staple who appears in all of David Leitch and Chad Stahelski's movies. The locations, the suits, like the suits in this one are very sharp and brilliant. Like, everything works to enhance the film. Like, the fact that everything else surrounding the song is so cool makes me wonder why they decided to use it. 3 out of 5, which gives John Wick a grand total of 22 out of 25. Pretty clear that in round 1, The Matrix beats John Wick with their score of 24 out of 25. As both of these movies are bedrocks of their franchises, and also set the stage for action cinema for years to come, it's pretty clear that The Matrix is more of an anomaly than John Wick is. It's something that shouldn't be. It's too weird, too esoteric, too fucking out there, and too expensive. But the strength of the storytelling of the Wachowskis, and the specific moment that it was allowed to be created in, makes The Matrix a superior film to John Wick. And, as an aside, The Matrix might be the Rosetta Stone to my film-loving DNA. Everyone has their own movie that makes them fall in love with movies, and I think The Matrix is mine. Especially in this rewatch for this episode, I was essentially Chris Farley in the Chris Farley show on SNL, being like, remember the dojo scene? That was awesome. Oh, and remember when Neo just stops the bullets with his hands? That was awesome. And remember when he goes, I know Kung Fu, and he goes, whoa? It was awesome. And I would just like to take this moment to thank my parents for allowing me to watch this movie when I was far too young to watch this movie. It broke my brain because of the philosophy, and I didn't care that I was learning because the Kung Fu was awesome. It cemented into my brain, like, I'm gonna remember The Matrix more than I'm gonna remember other people's names that are more important in my life. Watching the film at 9 years old did not scar me in the slightest, and I recommend all you 9-year-olds to watch The Matrix. So, thanks for watching. This one was a doozy, wasn't it? Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I would appreciate it. Ash would appreciate it. It would be a nice thing to do, you know? A nice Christmas present for me. It costs you $0, and you would make my day. I'll be getting the next videos out as soon as I can. I've got a Christmas-themed episode coming on Christmas or a little bit after Christmas. Let's be honest, it's probably gonna be the week between Christmas and New Year's. And since this will be the last video I will release before I watch The Matrix Resurrections, let me just say I watched the trailer and my reaction was, how are they going to clean up the end of Revolutions? I don't care. I'm excited. If you have to choose on Christmas Day whether to watch Spider-Man or The Matrix, well, I'll tell you what.
I choose The Matrix.
Sláinte.